You remember in Game of Thrones, winter is coming. Well, I'm here to confidently tell you, revolution is coming. Now, how can I say that with a smile on my face? The next 3.5 years are going to be fast and fun. And if you have a good sense of humor, it's going to be a jolly good time. There are 4 revolutions that are concurrently happening right now, and they are going to climax in a very specific order, which I'm going to outline on today's show. What this means to you is if you're positioned properly over the next 3.5 years, you can literally set the stage for massive influence, massive income, and a great lifestyle over the next 40 years. Today's show is going to be fun. Today's show is going to be fast, and write it down because what I'm going to talk about is going to happen. EdTalks Live is next. Hey, what's up, party people? My name's Ed Rush, 5-time #1 best-selling author, your host for the most positive place on the planet for insanely implementable ideas. We are here every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. If you haven't done so already, if you're on YouTube, jump in the chat on the right-hand side. If you're on Facebook, do that below in the comments section. Say hello to the EdTalks Live community. Today's going to be fast. I'm not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it. We're going to have a blast today as well. Now, I just want to start by just saying, I know the topic that I'm going to talk about today can be a little bumpy, and it could potentially cause a little fear because sometimes the unknown can create fear. But my goal today is to lay out what's going to happen. In fact, if you ever have watched a single movie, you already know what's going to happen. It's going to look like we're going to lose. It's going to look like the bad guy is going to win. And then right there at the very end, the good guys are going to win, and that's you, okay? So if you're tempted to have a little fear about the future, don't. Have a big smile on your face because I'm here to tell you that everything's going to be okay. Now, it might feel a little bumpy along the way, but that's okay. The second thing is I'm going to get into application. I'm going to show you some of the things that you can do right now to better position yourself for what's going to happen over the next 3.5 years. And the third thing that I have to tell you, okay, is by way of disclaimer, because I'm going to be talking about money and business and government and finance. It's important for me to just tell you, I'm not an investment advisor, a doctor, a scientist, a lawyer, or a cow. I also don't play any of them on TV. So, of course, consult the appropriate person for advice in each area, or don't, whatever. Look, here's the thing. The so-called experts, I've seen this year the so-called experts to be about as right as a coin flip, okay? So here's my suggestion to you. Be an adult. Use your brain. Get great advice, and then move forward with a big smile on your face. Speaking of smiles on their faces, let me jump in and say hello in chat. Hello, Daisy. Good to see you. She said, what a beautiful Thursday morning. Indeed it is. What's up, Barry? Good to see you as well. Thank you, Sally. And Sally's in the financial world, too, so she knows her stuff when it comes to money. Hi, Diana. Good to see you as well. Yoski, my man from Pennsylvania. It's only like 3 feet of snow in Pennsylvania, all right? So it's a very chilly 65 degrees here in California. Robert, what's up? Zach, my man. What's up, Anita? Good to see you. Roll Tide. Welcome, everybody, to the show as you're joining us. Jump in on chat. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do. Okay, so the last week saw a massive revolution in the financial world. And I'm going to break down the revolution that happened in the financial world. And I'm going to show you how it is a meta-narrative for everything that's going to happen over the next 3.5 years. Before I do that, let me just tell you that there are actually 4 simultaneous revolutions that are happening and will unfold in a specific order. If you want a big picture name for this, you can just simply call it the revolution of the little guy, okay? And I say that very gender non-specific. I'm just saying the little people like you and me who don't work in big government and big tech for a big company, not the CEO of some massive global drug conglomerate, just regular people like you and me trying to figure out what's what, trying to make our way in the world today like it takes everything you got, like it said back in the old days. Okay, so the revolutions are, number 1, the revolution of the people versus big business. This is the one we're going to start with. Revolution number 2 is the revolution of the people versus fake money. Revolution number 3 is the revolution of the people versus fake science. And then finally, the final revolution that you're going to see come down the pike is the revolution of the people versus big government. I'm going to walk through each of these in turn, but I'm going to start with what happened last week so that we can lay a foundation for the meta narrative over the next 4 years. And again, we're going to get into your application of this in just a moment. Now, remember I said revolution number 1 is the people versus big business. The way that the stock market and the way the financial markets have operated over at least the last 20 years, but probably more like the last 200 years, there are big players in the market called whales who can significantly manipulate and move the market because they have significant buying power. In the case of this last week, the antagonist in this story are your hedge fund managers and the hedge fund people. Now, I'm sure that in general, these aren't evil people, but in this story, they're going to find their way in as the antagonist. The protagonist in this story is a group of individual investors who are on a board on the website Reddit, and they were called Wall Street Bets. You might have seen this symbol, okay? This is the folks on Wall Street Bets. Now, what happened in the market last week was there was a stock called GameStop that was trading, and I'm gonna make this very simple. This is not, the numbers aren't exactly perfectly accurate because I'm gonna show you an analogy in a moment. But there was a stock that was trading at about $10 per share. Now, this is a company called GameStop, which has had some retail issues, like most retail stores have had retail issues over the last year. And so a group of hedge funds got together and decided to short sell GameStop. I'm going to explain what that means in just a second. For those of you who aren't familiar with the movings of the market, even if you are, this will be a nice refresher for you. But this group decided to short sell. The maneuver on Wall Street is called a short squeeze, and it is often accompanied with a big negative news push towards this company as well, so that the stock will begin to fall and their bet will play out. Now, let's talk really quickly about what a short sell is. And I'm going to be overly simplistic about this. This is not a perfect definition, but it is one that makes sense of what this is. So let's say GameStop is selling at $10 per share. And let's say you, as an investor, you say, you know what? I think this stock is going to go down. Well, if the stock is going to go up, you can buy shares of the stock. And if the stock goes from $10 to $15, you make 50% on your money because the stock goes up. That's called going long, or a more traditional purchase of stock. That's just you buying stock, okay? Those when you buy shares of stock, it's called going long. Now, going short works in the opposite direction. The problem is you can't buy stock to go short, because if you buy stock to go short and it goes up, you make money, not the opposite. So a short position works like this. It's like this. Let's say you wanted to short GameStop. You would say to me, I think the stock's going to go down. So Ed, why don't we do this? Why don't I buy shares of GameStop from you? Or sorry, why don't we set up an agreement where you buy shares from me next week for $10, what it's going for right now. And if I think, okay, that's actually good, because I think, the stock's probably going to stay where it is. I agree with you. This is a contract we make. And let's say the stock goes down to $6 over the course of a week. So check it out. Check out what you do. You just said to me, you were going to sell me shares of GameStop in a week for $10. That's the contract, the agreement that we made. So in 1 week, you now buy the share at $6 and you sell it to me for $10 per our agreement. And look at that, you've just made $4 per share of our agreement. Now, what makes this an even more effective strategy if the stock goes down is it's accomplished 100% on leverage. Here's what this means. You borrow a certain amount of money to cover your bet, okay? And so let's say I only borrowed $4 to cover this bet on $10. Well, if I borrowed $4, I just made $4 and I effectively doubled my money. So there's a way to make a lot of money in short selling if you leverage your money right. But let's look at this on the flip side. Let's say, for example, GameStop doesn't go down. GameStop, in fact, goes up. And it doesn't go up to $20 or $30 or $50 or $100, but instead it goes up to $396. In a week, you're still required, according to our contract, to sell me this stock for $10. The problem is you now have to buy the stock at $396. What that means is you buy the stock for $396, you sell it to me for $10, you just lost $386 per share that you executed. And if you're a hedge fund manager, you probably just went bankrupt and lost billions of dollars. So what happened last week is a group of investors on a board on Reddit called Wall Street Bets caught wind of the fact that there were some hedge fund operators who were going to be short squeezing or short selling GameStop. The share price was right around $10, and these Redditors decided en masse to get together and use primarily an investing platform called Robinhood, and we're going to get to that in just a second, to buy shares of the stock. And when you buy shares of a stock, the stock goes up. Now, what was happening here was these hedge funds actually had shorted more shares than actually existed on planet Earth, which is technically illegal, and simultaneously lost their shirt. Now, the hedge fund folks have been used to gaming the system for years. And as you might imagine, they were very shocked, surprised, and angry when they got gamed. Ha ha! Get it? Gamed? Okay, so that's my little GameStop joke for today, okay? In short, get it? In short, they had been manipulating the game for so long, they finally got manipulated. So what did? They took all their power, they took all their influence, and they reached out to the trading platforms like Robinhood, where individual traders can trade stock, and said, shut down all trading and buying for this stock. And you know what? They did. The hysterical irony is that a small investment company called Robinhood, for a brief period of time, stole from the poor to give to the rich. But what we saw across America was the little guy sticking it to the big guy. Now, it shouldn't come as any surprise to you that in Washington, they're very concerned about this rogue investment behavior. In fact, the leader of the Reddit board on Wall Street Bets is now being brought to Congress for an investigation. Should you be surprised that your elected leaders, the leaders that you elected to represent you and me, the little guy, are now going after the little guy? It also shouldn't come as a surprise to you that the Wall Street Bets group itself was shut down for, get this, are you ready for this? Like, you can't even write the script this well. For hateful and discriminatory content. Okay, look, you cannot write this story. You can't write it well enough to laugh at it. They got shut down. But and by the way, they were shut down literally like the day after. And the board said, no, just so you know, this has nothing to do. This has nothing to do with this investment thing. It's for hateful and discriminatory content. Now, to be fair, the board was slammed, okay? So there were pretty nasty things being said. But I thought, in today's day, right now, I think the powers that be figure that if they want to shut you up, all they have to do is be like, I think you're being hateful and discriminatory. Now, let's pause for a moment and just talk about speech for just a minute. Is hateful speech wrong? Of course it's wrong. Is discriminatory speech wrong? Of course it's wrong. Should it be allowed on online platforms? We can debate that. My issue with the free speech debate isn't what's right or wrong, but write this down. Who decides? Did you catch that? Nobody's talking about that right now. Everyone's, oh, so hate speech. We should definitely be against hate speech. It's really bad, everybody. Hate speech. But let me ask you a question. What if your competitor decided to knock you off the face of the planet and take your business completely out? And what if your competitor said, oh, it's because of hate speech? But really what they were doing was knocking you out of business. Could they do that? Have they done that? Have they done that even this year? The answer to that question is yes. And so the question when it comes to speech is not what is right and what is wrong, it's who decides. Right now, who's deciding are big businesses. And now you can see the genesis of revolution number one, which is the people versus big business. The company Uber was the biggest example of people versus big business. You had this cab conglomerate that was run in a lot of cities by mobsters that created a situation where the drivers were getting hosed and the passengers were getting hosed. Somebody in the middle was making a lot of money. And Uber wiped the person in the middle completely out. Expect another 1,000 companies just like Uber over the next 3.5 years. As a business owner, you get to choose what side you're on. There is a reason right now that I am not running advertising on Facebook, YouTube, Google, Twitter, or Instagram. I'm not even doing it on LinkedIn. I'm not running advertising anywhere. That is a personal conscience decision I made. That conscience decision came down to the simple fact that I am not in the business of giving money to companies whose ethics I do not personally agree with. Now, I'm not saying for you that you shouldn't be running ads. That's a decision that I made. But the side that I'm choosing right now is the people against big business. So that is revolution number one, the people versus big business. Real quick, I'm going to jump into chat. All right, David and Goliath, good. Robbing the Hood, thank you. Sounds like their game came to a stop. That is funny. This narrative is popular but completely wrong. Go ahead and fill in the blanks on that as to why you think that's true. Thank you for that. Anyone can take your ad off Craigslist with one warning. Okay, so she says trading was stopped because Robinhood needed to meet capital requirements. It's not about the people versus big business. I would expect to see the CEO of Robinhood in front of a congressional inquiry answering that specific question. The answer to that is they shut down certain investors, but not others. And that right there is where the issue was. Not because of their leveraging requirements. It was because of one versus the other. They shut down individual investors while remaining open to institutional investors. If capital was the issue, they would have done it with both. Thank you for your comment, by the way, and you're more than welcome to disagree. Okay, so, and by the way, I'm also happy to be wrong. Did you know that? By the way, if you're new to this show, I am happy to be wrong, because guess what? When you're wrong, you learn, okay? So, if that's wrong, fine. I still think it's hysterical that Robinhood shut down the little guy. Okay, all right. So again, if I'm wrong, you tell me that I'm wrong. I'm happy to do that. But I'm just telling you the way I read it. All right. Now let's move into number two. Revolution number two. The second revolution that's coming is what I'm calling the people versus fake money. Now this is the part where I'm getting into some monetary stuff. Okay, like investment kind of stuff. And so let me just remind you, as my disclaimer, I'm not an investment advisor, so use your own brain, okay? So people, check it out, versus fake money. Let's go back to 1933. 1933, the president was FDR. In 1933, June 5th to be exact, FDR took our nation off of the gold standard. In fact, right before that, he issued an executive order that said all gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates are now owned that you have to bring it all into the Federal Reserve. What he did, in effect, was confiscate all the gold that people had individually, or at least tried to, let's be honest. The moment he signed an executive order saying you have to turn in your gold, I think most Americans were like, I'm going to probably buy some more gold, okay? All right, and then in June of 93, he went off the gold standard. Now, I'm holding in my hands a crisp $20 bill. If you look at the top of the $20 bill, it says at the top, Federal Reserve Note. By the way, the face on the $20 bill is actually going to change. This current face is Andrew Jackson, and the face is moving to Harriet Tubman, which, if you want my opinion, is a great idea. I, about 7 years ago, took some time to study the life of Harriet Tubman. I bought every book I could find, which, frankly, there are not many books about this woman's life, and read about this amazing woman who had the courage, even with a condition called narcolepsy, to go back to the eastern shore of Maryland and free hundreds and hundreds of slaves through the Underground Railroad. So, if you want my side opinion about the $20 bill, I will be honored to carry Harriet Tubman $20 bills in my pocket, okay? Now, back to 1933 and the Federal Reserve Note. It used to be that you could take a Federal Reserve note and go trade it for its value or its stated value in gold or potentially silver from the Federal Reserve. In 33, we went completely off of that standard. Now, I'm not here to argue for or against a gold standard. I have my opinions on both sides of the issue. What I can tell you is that our current economy is no longer based in a standard, it's based in consumer confidence. So for example, if I gave you this $20 bill in exchange, for something worth $20, you would be taking this money because you would assume sometime in the future you would be able to use this $20 bill in a similar fashion to the way that I paid you. In other words, it's our confidence in that particular currency that gives it its current value. And again, I'm not here to argue the two systems. That's not my point today. I'm just simply telling you the system that we're on. Now, this system itself works great as long as government plays fair. Did you hear what I just said? This system, this consumer confidence in the $20 bill system works fine as long as government plays fair. But if government doesn't play fair anymore, the system gets out of whack. Now, for a moment, let me explain what's happened over the last 12 months, okay? And I want to talk quickly about money supply. So let's say, theoretically, this is not true, okay, but I'm using very round numbers just to describe this principle. Let's say, theoretically, there are $1 trillion in existence in the stock market, or excuse me, there's $1 trillion in currency existence right now. In other words, the money supply is $1 trillion. Now, money supply is more nuanced than how much paper currency is floating around. Banks are able to leverage or multiply currency based on interest rates. And again, it's not my point to talk about monetary policy right now, but let's just assume there's $1 trillion of currency in trade right now. Let's say, theoretically, your savings portfolio is $100,000. Now, that could be money that you have in the bank. That could be money that you have in your home. That could be money that you've invested in an IRA or in a 401k or in other investable assets. Okay? And this is just a theoretical discussion. So let's say there's $1 trillion. You have $100,000 of that theoretical $1 trillion. Now, let's say the government says, you know what we're going to do? We're going to print $100 billion. In other words, we're going to print 10% more money than is currently in existence. So the government says, hey, here's the deal. We got to pay some bills. We're going to print $100 billion or 10% more money that's in existence. In this particular moment, When they do that, here's how the money ends up happening. The government creates the money either through leveraging it or through actually printing it. Then they use that money to pay their bills. How convenient, okay? Then the money ends up in circulation. And the effect of that money in circulation doesn't happen instantaneously, but it does happen. But what you should know is that in effect, when 10% more money supply went back into circulation, that effectively your $90,000 or $100,000 just turned into $90,000 in actual future purchasing power. You just got taxed 10%. Now, the interesting thing is usually this doesn't even happen in the legislative Congress, okay, in the legislative branch. So there's no one to hold accountable. There's no one to vote off the island, okay? A lot of times this happens at the Treasury Department or at the executive level. But you just got taxed 10%. So, you know when people say, we're not gonna raise taxes? If they're putting more money into supply, they just tax you. You know, somebody say, hey, unless you're at $400,000 or more, you're taxed. Well, look, if you print money and put money into supply, you're doing this. Now, if you're an individual, if you're a person and you decide to counterfeit money, in other words, if you decide just to print $20 bills, you go to jail. If you are a country and you decide to print money, you get reelected. Think about that for a moment. Now, in 1 month in 2020, we put more money into supply. We printed more money than in the entirety of the years 1776 to 1976. In 1 month in 2020, we inflated and put more money in supply than in 2 full centuries. Think about that for a moment. The numbers that I've seen for 2020 range anywhere in between 10% inflation all the way up to 40% inflation. There are no countries in existence who have inflated their currency quite like this that haven't paid the piper. Venezuela is an example, and 40s Germany is another example, where they were literally printing Deutschmarks to pay for their war bill long enough to where Deutschmarks were being used apparently as wallpaper. That's how low their value was. This is the reality in our current market right now. The truth is, the time is coming. The first thing you'll see is inflation, which is absolutely inevitable, okay? The second thing we will likely see is a fairly massive economic recession, potentially depression, potentially collapse. Now, like, wait a second, Ed. Sounds like really bad news. By the way, I have no idea when this is going to happen, okay? It could happen tomorrow. It could happen 4, 5, 7 years. But I'm just telling you, unless you come to grips with this fact as a country, there's the result is inevitable, okay? You cannot drive a train off of a cliff and expect that the train will just keep going on. And right now, there's some consumer confidence maneuvering the market. There's also a massive money supply. Think about it. They put a lot of money into supply, and people are using that money right now to buy cars, buy homes. Okay, that's all good. So what do you do now? You create assets that are valuable for you in the future. And I do not believe there is a better group of assets right now than the following: what you know, who you know, and who follows you. Did you catch me on that? What you know, who follows you. Here's the thing. Business is still going to happen. Trading is still going to happen. Instruction is still going to happen. People are still going to be teaching like I'm teaching right now on YouTube or Facebook. People are still going to be looking for answers. So if what I just told you, you're like, oh my gosh, what should I do with my money? Talk to your investment person about that, okay? I can tell you parenthetically, I've got some of my Some of my retirement funds are in a precious metals, okay? And there's a reason for that. The reason is because of what I just described here. I'm not giving you investment advice. I'm just telling you what I've done in the past. But think about how you can create assets for yourself and your business that might stand the test of time, okay? That is revolution number 2, which is the people versus fake money. All right, really quickly, I'm going to get back into chat. Anyone can take, oh yeah, I did that one. Thank you, Ted. Appreciate you, buddy. You're the man. Oh, hey, thanks, Matt. I appreciate that, buddy. Very nice of you. All right, so we're going to keep cranking. By the way, for those of you who just joined us, we're talking about, my name's Ed Rush. We're talking about the coming American Revolution. I went through revolution number 1, which is the people versus big business. Revolution number 2, the people versus fake money. We're about to move into revolution number 3. By the way, next Tuesday, this was supposed to be today's show. Next Tuesday is part 2 of our goal fuel series called Total Mind Control. Okay, so let's get cranking into number 3, and then I'm going to stick around just a little bit to answer your questions. By the way, I got maybe 10 minutes left. I'm going to move fast through these next 2, and like I said, remember what I said. This is all positive. Hey, if you're living in 1775 America, the next couple years are going to be a little challenging, right? There's going to be British troops places. People are going to be going off to war. That's cool. Okay, but like eventually it turned out really good. 1781, prime times. Okay, so just understand it might take a month, it might take a couple years, but everything's going to be fine as long as you keep your head on and you laugh. Okay, all right. So some of you noticed I wore my "Have we tried turning America on and back off again?" Shirt. All right, revolution number 3. We're going to get cranking on this, and then we're going to go. All right. Revolution number 3 is the people versus fake science. This is the part of the show where I start getting a little angry letters. Okay? People. All right. The reason I'm laughing, people get a little nervous about science. Okay? People are like, you gotta trust science. You just gotta trust science. Okay? Let me just say parenthetically, I love science. I love science. I really do. I loved learning science when I was in school. I love reading about science. Man, I just read a 900-page book about science, okay? So I love science. I mean, over the last 6,000 years of recorded human history, we have discovered and created some amazing things with science. I mean, think about it. We've mapped the human genome. You know how amazing that is? Science has mapped the human genome. I've got a DNA test sitting on my desk that you can just swab and you can find out about your DNA. That is science, man. That is amazing. Science has looked into the stars. I mean, you can see black holes and like quasars and stuff like that. Science created Cheetos. I mean, come on. You ever had Frito pie? That's science, okay? So like, trust me when I say science is awesome. Science is amazing. I love science, okay? So like, don't say that I don't like science. I love science, but fake science is a drag, okay? And I'm going to define fake science. Fake science is quote unquote science that is used and manipulated to push forward a political opinion, a social opinion, or an economic opinion. Did you catch that? Fake science is when someone grabs quote unquote science that may or may not be science and they just use it so that they can push forward their political, economic, or social position, okay? Normally, fake science is accompanied by a complete deviation from the scientific method, which is real science, and a very selective data process. In other words, we're going to say something like this. All right, check it out. We're going to roll out a vaccine. I'm not saying they did this. I'm just saying this would be what fake science would look like. We're going to roll out a vaccine. Anybody that gets hurt by the vaccine, we're going to put over in this category, and we're going to call them a COVID-19 death. But everybody who's okay with the vaccine, we're going to put them in this category, and then we're going to come out and we're going to say everything's safe and effective because see those people over there? Those people that have injuries? Those people don't have injuries from the vaccine. See, they have injuries from something else. I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just simply saying that's how people would use fake science. Fake science is the same thing that allowed fake scientists to label OxyContin both safe and effective back in 1995. And if you read the study in 1995, it was labeled by scientists or fake scientists, safe and effective. And it effectively put a generation of Americans on drugs, one of which was my younger brother who died from a drug overdose linked to an addiction to OxyContin, which they said was safe, effective. And by the way, the scientists at the time said it was not addictive. That's fake science. Here's fake science. Masks don't work. Masks do work. 2 masks are better than 1 mask. Now, just so you know, someplace in there, there's real science. Like somewhere, somebody could actually do an actual scientific study, somebody probably has it already, on the effectiveness of certain kinds of masks. But I don't know about you. When the 2 mask people started talking like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, it felt to me like an Onion article because of fake science. Now, the revolution of the people versus fake science is really simple. Y'all are starting to figure it out. 2020 was the year where most of America became amateur epidemiologists. You studied science like I studied science. And we started to come to our own conclusions. And we started to realize that when you read a newspaper article and it says, oh, science has determined that this is safe and effective, and you start to realize that the history of science wasn't that simple. In fact, if you understand the history of science, you understand that science was actually wrong a lot. And great scientists are thrilled about being wrong. Remember earlier in the show today where I said, look, if I'm wrong about Robin Hood, I'm happy with that. Maybe I'll learn something along in the process. A great scientist is so excited to find out he or she was wrong because then they can find out what they were right. But if you have someone pushing science down your throat and saying, just trust the science, don't think, trust the science, okay? But then science starts changing its mind like science has done here in California. Science has changed its mind in California a lot, okay? Restaurants opened, closed, opened, doesn't matter where the numbers are. Just drove by. I drove by a restaurant yesterday. The sign on the restaurant said, come eat with us before Gavin changes his mind, okay? You don't know who Gavin is. He's the governor. He's the governor, okay? Come eat with us before Gavin changes his mind. That's an example of the people's reaction against fake science. And what you're going to see first in 2021, the first revolution will be around the vaccine, okay? And look, whatever your opinion is, it's totally fine. It's fine wherever you stand on this particular issue. I can simply tell you that in the point at which states first and then the federal government second begins to mandate certain things, the American people will begin to push back, okay? And that's what you're going to see this year. Now, what does this have to do with you? A lot. Find yourself investigating. Find yourself unveiling things. Find yourself learning about things. What you realize when you get into actual science is it's far more nuanced than we actually realize it is. We barely even know what a virus is, much less what it does. And that's number 3, the people versus fake science. Real quick, I'm going to jump into chat. Oh, man. Bob, the Earth temperature is rising last year. Oh, thank you. Hold on, I have to get to the top. Venezuela, good example. If you can compare and contrast other countries would add clarity. Hey, what's up, Mike? Good to see you, buddy. You're doing something right. That's true. That's true. Didn't I already say? I said that if your book has 7 to 12% one-star reviews, you just did it right. The Earth's temperature is rising. For last year, it was blamed on pollution. Last year, it was blamed on no pollution. And by the way, this is another interesting issue. Climates are complicated, very complicated. Okay, so the people who say you have to be on one side or the other, the problem with the climate science debate is the 2 parties that have developed themselves on either side of it aren't willing to see data and really investigate on both sides. Okay, thank you, Robert. You are the best. I've got like a whole bunch of spam comments over on. I don't know why I stream this on Twitch because all I ever get is spam. Okay, science created cheat and Fritos and Frito pie. All right, what's up, Gina? It's good to see you as well. I don't know if I should answer that question publicly, Anita. Yeah, thank you, Diana. Let me just tell you, I believe in immunity. When in February of 2021, when COVID started to become an issue, I started praying a psalm called 91, Psalm 91, which spoke of God protecting you. The first and most important immunity I believe in is God's abundant protection. Now, that doesn't mean that I just go eat Cheetos all day long, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can believe and act a different way. But the second kind of immunity, Anita, when I started getting interested in defeating viruses, the next thing I did is I went and got a blood test, and I started taking the supplements that I needed under the care of a great doctor to make sure that I had built up as much as I could. Okay, the chemicals that you put inside of your body through medicine may or may not help, but they're way more effective if your body is ready for it. Okay, I'm not a doctor. I don't give health advice. Talk to your doctor. The second thing, and I'll just say it out loud. Okay, now that I said I'm not going to answer your question, I guess I will. There are, with both of the vaccines right now, there are proprietary ingredients that have not been released. I personally don't eat food unless I know what's in the food, right? So when you can read the label, and when you read the label of food, and I wouldn't give my kids food if I didn't know what was in it. And both of the most popular vaccines right now have proprietary ingredients that are currently not listed. And for me, that's a little bit of a non-starter, frankly, because I don't like putting things in my body that I don't know what I'm putting in there. Okay. The sheath, the lipid sheath is, oh my goodness. One of those is almost definitely aluminum. Let me just put it that way. And then I'm going to move on. All right. So, gosh, I can't believe you talked me into it. All right. Yeah. Winnie says, I believe in Jesus, but I still lock the doors of my house. The one that Pam Henderson once said, trust God and tie up your horses. Okay. So look, anyone who's a faithful person understands that belief is massively important, but action's also really important. You put those two things together. Okay. So, by the way, I'm not dogmatic about any of the things that I just said, so don't be all upset at me, okay? And this is not a reason for us to not be friends, just so you know. You believe a lot of things differently than I do, and it's all okay, and we're all learning and growing, and maybe I'll change my mind in 3 months. You never know, because I'm learning much like you are, okay? Last thing, and then I'm going to wrap up today's show. By the way, we covered revolution number 1, people versus big business. Number 2, fake money. Number 3, people versus fake science. Now we're going to come down to number 4. Revolution number 4 is the people versus big government. Here's the thing. Right now, you have elected people to represent you. This mug that I have has a quote from Abraham Lincoln. It says, the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. You may notice when I showed you that mug that it's broken. I bought this at the Independence Hall in Philadelphia, right next to the Liberty Bell. And then I brought it home and I dropped it and it broke. But then I realized, this is very representative of America. We have a government of the people, by the people, for the people, which shall not perish from the earth, Lord willing, but it is bashed up a little bit and broken. And the truth is, right now, you have leaders right now who are beholden to 4 things. Number 1, what will get them reelected? Number 2, what will get them money? Number 3, what will get their friends elected? Number 4, what will get their friends money? Right now, your leaders on TV will say, I can't vote for that because I won't get elected if I vote for that. It used to be under the surface. That used to be under the table. And so I got together with some people in a movement where we truly do want to change the way our country operates. The website, if you're interested in learning more about it, by the way, is EdRush for America. And we made 4 new things. Remember I said there are 4 things over here? The 4 things we made were, number 1, you'll never legislate and violate your conscience. In other words, you're always going to do the right thing. Number 2, you're always going to ask yourself, what's best for my country? Number 3, you're always going to ask, what's best for my state or the district that I represent? And number 4, what's best for the world? And those shouldn't compete against each other. In other words, you should come up with the best moral right answer that's best for the country, best for your state, and best for the world. Those should not compete with one another. Right now, you're seeing legislation that is in favor of some of the smallest, some of the tiniest little groups of people that have massive voices and massive power. That's not of the people, by the people, and for the people. And I'm not talking, by the way, about this current administration. I'm talking about, I mentioned a president back in 1933 who tried to confiscate gold. The history of America with very few exceptions, very few exceptions, is the big and the powerful and the loudest winning the day. But the time is coming when the little guy, okay? The time is coming when the little gal, okay? If I'm going to use the gender terms, the time is coming where you say enough. Where you say enough. That time is coming. Can you feel it? I mean, can you feel it? Like, it only takes a Wall Street forum to be banned because of hateful and discriminatory content when we all know they were banned because they took down the big guy. It only takes a few of those before the people get together. Now, throughout history, the sad thing is most of those revolutions have required blood. And I am praying with all of my heart that this next revolution will be a peaceful, reasonable revolution. In fact, if you look at history, some of the world's greatest countries have come out of revolution of small people revolting against big people. 1776 is a perfect example. And by the way, in 1776, the Declaration of Independence was intended as a peaceful bit of communication. If at that time King George had said, you know what, have your independence. May God go with you. And if there's anything we can do to help you, maybe we can even become trading partners. It would have been better for everyone. But the decision wasn't made, which led to bloodshed. May God bless our country that we don't have that kind of revolution. But I can tell you, it's coming. Democrats are leaving the Democratic Party. Republicans are leaving the Republican Party at a faster rate than ever before. 62% of America, 62, according to a recent Gallup poll, said, I would vote for a third party if I was given an option. Well, guess what? We plan on giving you one. Okay? So, as you look at the world and you see, gosh, man, these big tech, these big companies that run the world tell you what you can say and what you can't say. They'll moderate some tweets, but they won't moderate some others. Like, wait a second, where's the standard? Who decides? Remember I said who decides? Those issues are going to start to come to a head. People versus fake money. You watch. You watch. When the economy starts to move, what people start to do, the people versus fake science, there's only so, like, by the time they get to 3 masks, like, some people are going to be upset about that. Okay? 3 masks are better than 2. Okay? Okay? And look, I don't care what political side you're on. We're all Americans. Okay? And I left the Republican Party quite some time ago because I wasn't willing to listen to the tribe and the way they think about everything. Thank God I did. Maybe you're on the other party. Maybe it's time for you to move out too. Okay? And the website is below. It wasn't my purpose to pitch that. I just wanted to talk about what was coming. All right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit back down. Woo! Man, I knew today was going to be fun. Hopefully that made sense of some of the things that are happening. I once had a guy I learned from. I once had a guy who was a teacher. After he got done, he used to go, now, 50% of what I just told you is wrong. Problem is, I don't know what's 50% and neither do you. By the way, 100% of what I just said is not right. There's no chance. Look, I didn't come down from Sinai. All right, I'm not on the Mount of Transfiguration. I'm a human being just like you. So I guarantee you, some of what I just told you is wrong. Most of it's probably right, honestly. But you got to figure that out on your own. You guys can debate that if you want to. Hey, it's still experimental, by the way. Normally they test these vaccines for like 8 years. This one's like 8 months. So at the very least, I'm gonna wait. Just say that. Oh man, Bob, you are right, man. By the way, I did touch on some issues that could be a little contentious. And remember I said this isn't a reason for us not to be friends? If let's say, and I have friends who are on both sides of the vaccine issue. Man, you know what? If they stop talking to each other, we're in big trouble. We're in big trouble right now if they stop talking to each other. Because we need to talk through all these things so that we have great medicine and we have great thinking and great freedom, and all those things need to come together. So if we don't have this ability to communicate because we're like, that's it, I'm out of here, right? So if you were like, wait a second, Ed said there's stuff in the vaccine that they don't disclose, and that concerns him, and that made you decide that we weren't friends anymore. Well, guess what? Then we don't even get to talk about all these other things, okay? Now you know why our country's in trouble. Thank you, Wendell Bugs. Thanks, Heidi. They do, at least right now they do. Thanks, buddy. Good comment. Thank you, Gina. Thank you for your LinkedIn message. By the way, if you ever message me on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, there's a really good chance I don't see it because I'm not on social media right now very much. But for some reason, that was there earlier today, Gina. So thank you. I actually sent that article on to Delisa. All right, so I'm going to stick around for just a few more minutes for your thoughts and comments. Thank you, by the way, for your time and attention. You are amazing. And listen, I just want to just pause back for a moment and just say, I mean, today's show, we talked about, where was I? Oh, there. What GameStop can tell you about the coming American Revolution. I mean, we talked about what happened, but I'm just sharing with you what's going to happen. It was the people versus big business, the people versus, by the way, some of you know, I've said this before in the past, the people versus media, I'm lumping that into big business now. So if you're like, forget the news media, well, that's people versus big business. People versus fake money, people versus fake science, people versus big government. Notice fake, fake, big, big. Big, fake, fake, big. And that's your next 3.5 years. Find yourself on the right side of the cash register, though. Now's the time to build your following, and we're going to talk about how to do that when we get back into the show next week. On Tuesday, I'm going to do total mind control, okay? So in the meantime, jump into chat. Give me your comments. I would love to hear what you have to say. I don't ask this very often, but there is a share button right down there. I thought today was some particularly valuable content. I'm biased, but like that doesn't mean I'm not right. So if you thought it was valuable, I would love just the honor of just clicking that share button. I don't ask that as much as I should. I basically never ask it. But if you would just do that, if you got some value out of today, just click the share button. And one of these days, we're just kind of have an open forum where you can call in. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Heidi. Awesome comments. Where you can just call in and we're going to just wrestle through and talk about these issues from all sides. Okay? In the meantime, don't forget, I love you and I like you. You're going to do amazing things. You got a message that's going to change the world. Got my book mentor people that are coming on right now, man. We're going to crank this thing. It's going to be amazing. And it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Maybe a little bumpy, but it's already been bumpy. So, like, what else? I mean, 2020 was a tough year. So, like, so what? So now we're here and we're having fun. So life is good, Oh, I love it. Thank you. What should we do next? Give thanks, give ear, give heart, your voice. Yeah, remember what I said? Thank you, George. Remember what I said? The first thing is just thank you, God, that we look at this. We have the opportunity to have this conversation even on YouTube. I know we make fun of big tech, but we're doing it right now live on YouTube and Facebook. So yeah, be thankful for the things that you have. Start with gratitude and then decide, how am I going to change the world? How am I going to change the world? It could be medicine. It could be thought. It could be communication. It could be in leadership. We're going to do this. By the way, we're going to do this. I'm going to do a leadership training probably sometime in the next year to start raising up new leaders for this movement. That might be the first step for you. So thank you, George. Namaste. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it, Paul. Thank you for your awesome comments. Thanks, Anita. I appreciate that. Thank you, Diana. All right. We're going to wrap up today. Thank you. Don't forget, your mission is to change the world. This is just one step on the way. And I will see you next Tuesday. EdTalks Live is out.